Hi everyone, I'm Kimberly Dean Langlois, and today I'm going to show you how I use stencils to create a background for my alcohol ink paintings. I have some Ranger black cardstock, I have a Tim Holtz stencil, I have a couple of pearl inks, alcohol ink pearls. This is Intrigue, which is a pink. I have Alchemy, which is a yellow, and Snowcap Mixative, which is the white. I'll be using that. And then I also use this regular alcohol ink Boysenberry, which is a pretty purple. So I'm going to use a little stamper like this. This one's been used before. And I'm going to go ahead and shake up my alcohol pearls. Now these have a little pigment inside, so you can see that it settles in the bottom once it sits upright. So you just need to make sure that you shake it really, really well and get all of that pigment mixed into the ink before you use it. So I'm going to put a little bit of this yellow onto my little stamper tool. And if you have a paper towel handy, you can just kind of blot it off a little bit on a paper towel before you start. And I'm going to use little segments of my stencil. I'm not going to put the whole thing down. I'm just going to pick out little areas that I like a lot and just start putting some of that down for my background. So I'm just picking some little leaves and stems in here, and I'm going to add a little bit of that to my background. Hopefully you can see that okay. I'll tilt it. There you go. And just gonna probably not cover up the entire background, but just use some, like I said, some little pieces of this. So let me bring it around like this. I'm blotting my little stamper off a little bit before I go down with it. If your ink is too heavy, it might tend to run underneath the stencil a little bit. And really that's okay, because this is going to be very loose in the background. I'm not worried if it doesn't look exactly right. And that's kind of how I paint. If you know my work at all, you know that I don't get too stressed out if things don't work completely as planned, because with alcohol ink, you have to kind of expect the unexpected, because it's very fluid and it has a very organic nature about it. So I think it's best just to let the inks kind of tell you what they want to be and just go with it. So I'm putting down more of that yellow. Maybe you can see that shine. It's really pretty. And I'm going to use some of this Intrigue now. This is the pink. And I want to make sure I shake it again really, really well. I'm going to just dot it right onto that same little tool that I was using, and it will be okay. It won't mix that much. Let me see, let me put a little bit down here. And I just want to get a little color in the background. These paintings like this are very intuitive, I think, so you just have to kind of let your gut tell you where to go with them. You can put as much or as little of this stencil in your background as you want to, and then what I'm going to do is blow like a light flower on top of it so that some of that stencil shows through. So I'm just dabbing it around and just getting little bits and pieces of that stencil in the background. Let's put a little bit more right here. And I think that'll do it. So it just gives you something in the background so that you don't just have the black. I love alcohol ink on black because it really stands out against that black background. The inks are so vibrant and beautiful. Sometimes when you just have a black background, it just tends to need something back there. So I like to do this little stencil effect because it just adds a little bit of interest to the painting. Now I'm using Boysenberry now. This is a purple, and I'm just going to put down a circle of it, kind of fill it in some, let that ink kind of expand some, bloom as we call it. So it's going to kind of sink into that black cardstock. And once that's almost dry, I'm going to be using my little Tim Holtz blower here. Give it a little bit of air and get that dry. And then I'm going to use snow cap, and this is actually probably the ink that I use more than anything else in my paintings. I absolutely love it. I would say that it's probably in 99% of every alcohol ink painting that I do. I'm going to be using 91% alcohol as well. If I was wanting to blow this pearl ink, move it around, I would want to use blending solution. But I want this to kind of stay a little bit as it is in the background, so I'm using alcohol because alcohol will not really react with that pearl ink like blending solution will. So I'm going to put down some of the white along the edge, that's snow cap, along the edge of that purple, and then just drop some alcohol down with it, and then just give it a few puffs of air. Now, the more alcohol you put down, the more transparency you'll get. If you want it to be more opaque, then you put down less alcohol. And I like mine to be a little transparent, so I'm dropping a good bit of alcohol and really trying to get some nice transparency there so that I can see some of that stencil coming through the background, from the background. Okay, so some more snow cap, some alcohol, and just give it some air. And these don't need to look like any specific kinds of petals. This is very expressive and not at all trying to be realistic. You can kind of go around the edges if you want to smooth it out, but I sometimes like having some of those little jagged edges on my petals because it adds a little bit of energy in there. So I'm going along the edge of that purple again. So you can see the purple around the edge a little bit there where the white dropped on it. And now I'm just going to go between each of these petals and create a little bit of some layering in there. So I just dropped my white with a little bit more alcohol and just blow it out. I'm just going to go between each one of these. And I really love how pretty that, or what that stencil adds. It just adds a little touch of color behind the petal, which I think is really pretty, and it just makes it look interesting. Adds a little depth to it, and makes it a little more unusual. Here, and I'm giving it a good bit of alcohol. I'm putting down a little puddle. It's not just a drop, because I'm trying to get some nice transparency. And if you want it to be more opaque, again, you can just not use as much alcohol, just use a drop or so. And I'm also trying to get my petals to move further, so because I'm doing a larger painting. I mean, this is a 5x7. If I was doing a even larger than this, I would need to put down even more alcohol to really get the ink to move, to flow. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. You can see that background coming through there a little bit. And now I'm going to work on the center. You could add as many layers to this. If you wanted some more opaque petals right in the middle, you could add just snow cap and blow out some small petals. Sometimes I add some nice depth. For now though, I'm just going to finish up my center. I'm going to use my palette and just put some snow cap in one of the wells, and I use these little micro dental tools or micro makeup tools. I use these in my centers almost all the time. This is one of my go-to tools. So I'm just dipping it in there, dot it off a little bit on the side. Then I'm going to start creating some dimensions. So I'm going to start dotting in my snow cap around this top area. So I'm thinking about my light when I'm doing this. I'm thinking about where is my light source. So for this particular one, I'm having my light come from over the top, from the top area of the painting. So I want to keep my brightest area, say right around here. And now as I'm putting this snow cap down, it's picking up that purple underneath, so it's going to have a really pretty purple center. So this that I have marked right now will be my brightest area. But I want to also bring this white down into the center more. So I'm going to, once I put the white on my tool, I'm going to always start back where I want my brightest area to be, because that's when my tool is most full of ink. And then as it wears off, I'm going to come down into that center some, making my dots a little smaller, a little further away from each other as I come down, and that's what creates that depth. Now I don't want there to be a very distinct line from this white to dark. So what I'm trying to do is go back and blend that some. I want it to be a gradual change from light to dark. So I go over it several times usually until I get it just right, till I am happy with the transition of color from light to dark. And you'll definitely start to see that dimension happen there. And sometimes it's a good idea to, if you're not sure, take a picture of it with your phone and look at it, and you can always see, if you're looking at it in a picture, where it needs more light and where it needs more dark. So I want it to be brightest here. So I keep going back to that area because that's where I really want it to be the brightest. Now it takes a few rounds of this white to get it to really show up. And if you start to feel like it's too white, you can always go back in with a dark color. You could use black if you needed to fill in some more black. Now I've got plenty of dark still in this one down here, so I don't need to do that right now. But if it got too white and I wanted to break it up, I could just use pitch black to go in and break some of that up. So now what I've done is I have pulled the little fuzzy part off the end of this, and it's just plastic now. So I'm just going to go in with my plastic and just kind of pull some little marks in here while this ink is still wet, just to give it the idea that there are little stamens in there, some little fine lines that are running through the center. I spend a lot of time on the center of my flowers, and so it's just, you know, I might finish this video up and then look at it on my phone and decide that it really needs more darkness or more brightness. So it's just something that you have to really practice at, and just stop painting, look at it, and then figure out what it needs. So I'm just going in now, still with just a little plastic, and dotting it in there, changing the shape, because I don't want all my shapes to look exactly the same. I'm just kind of pulling it around. And creating some texture in there. So that's it. So that's how I use stencils to create that background. It just adds some interest to it, and you can see it coming through the petals, which adds something nice and different to the flower. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions or you have any comments about it, you can reach me on Facebook or Instagram as Kimberly Dean Designs, and I would be happy to answer any questions or help you along. Thank you so much.